Good. Okay. To kind of continue with the theme around, I mean, isn't it amazing? You could work with the breath for the rest of our lives, right? And have all these different kind of ways to kind of go about trying to work with your breath. And it doesn't always have to be this cookie cutter path of now it's time for my pranayama exercises. So I love that about our yoga practice, that the asana, the physical forms of yoga, give us the gateway to use the body as an opportunity to know prana, to know energy, that we can feel this beautiful interplay between our mind and our body and our breath and our spirit, that there's this dance that happens. Um, and the breath to me is just, it's integral to all of that. And therefore, of course, there's lots of different ways to go about finding the breath. If it's embedded in everything that we do, especially in our yoga practice or our meditation practice or any spiritual practice, then there's always an opportunity to use it as a tool and to kind of find your way through the breath to discover something more about yourself. So today we're going to work with, so yesterday we just touched upon the bandhas, this Jalandhara bandha, the throat bind, and then the Uddiyana bandha, which is the diaphragm, and the way the diaphragm can move and release and bind, and then the pelvic floor. So Mula Bandha is the pelvic floor, Uddiyana Bandha is the diaphragm, and Jalandhara Bandha is the throat bind. And this word lock or bind, bandha as the Sanskrit term, I feel like it's very misleading because, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, that when we think of something that just is a lock or a bind, we often think of only its job as closing something and holding something tight. But remember that locks open. I think sometimes about cells and how the cell membrane in every cell in our body has this lock and key with enzymes and with glucose and or insulin hormones. There's different things that unlock the cells to open up to different things. And oh yeah, valve, that's a great term. Thanks, Maggie. Um, so that when the conditions are right, we can close things up, and when the conditions are right, we can open things up. And this is where this, I think, is the rub when it comes to a lot of challenge with the breath, that a lot of times we don't open when we should and we don't close when we should, that we have just a confusion in our nervous system or in our psyche or in our habits around what the movement of our body and the openings and closings of our physical form offer for this pranic flow. So today, we're going to work a little bit with Mula Bandha, but really kind of integrate a lot of these things where we sense, a lot of problems arise in the pelvic floor when we either hold on too tight and never let go, or when we have laxity that we don't even know how to engage the pelvic floor. So, what I've learned through pelvic floor PTs in the past is that a broad majority of people who have problems with their pelvic floor or with their breathing often have very hypertonic, tight pelvic floor muscles. And we've all been told, especially women, have been told throughout our lives, do Kegel exercises, that if you feel like you have trouble with your pelvic floor muscles, then you need to strengthen. And a lot of times it's not, strengthening is not what we need, but we need to learn how to be fluid. We need to learn how to stabilize when we need to and how to release when we need to, and how to relax. That we don't have to always be in a state of hypervigilance, unconscious hypervigilance in our pelvic floor. So today we're going to kind of dance the pelvic floor a little bit and see how that invites pranic movement in our body, invites breath in our body, and then we'll kind of expand from there and bring the breath into our whole being. So hopefully that will feel good to you. All right, so let's go ahead and sit up straight and tall and find a comfortable position. Okay. Where you can ground. I'm sitting up on a bolster. I hope you're sitting up on something. Maybe you're one of those rare people that feels very comfortable sitting flat on the ground. It's very rare. So have support if you need it. And then just take a moment before we close our eyes even to just rock forward and back on your cushion, whatever you're sitting on, so that you feel your pelvis roll forward into an anterior tilt, like your pelvis can spill forward, and then to roll backwards so that you feel like the wave of your pelvis is kind of moving back. All right, so just a little bit of forward and back. And if you want to close your eyes, great. And invite your breath. See what portion of the movement invites the inhale, what portion of the movement invites the exhale. A lot of times, one of the sticky points that we get to with these bandhas is we reverse breathe. Okay, so notice if I know there's a couple of you in our crew here who tend to do that. So notice if the tendency for you is, I hope that when you anterior tilt and open your chest, that the inhale arises, and when you posterior tilt, the exhale arises. And if that's not what's happening for you, that's okay. Don't stress. And then settle into your posture. And now do some circling on your bolster. So instead, let me move back a little bit so you can see me. Instead of having your torso do the movement, where we're kind of rolling our chest, see if you can roll the pelvis. We do this on all fours sometimes, but just see what it feels like to have some of the motion instead of the torso rolling forward and back. See if you can just make it much more subtle where it's just the pelvis. And maybe you feel extra weight into one sit bone, and then it transfers weight. Just kind of find whatever's happening there and very subtle circling and go the other direction. Let your breath happen. A lot of times when you focus on a new movement, it's possible that your breath wants to stay very still. See if your breath can move with you. And then find some stillness and just see what it feels like to open your body up. Close your eyes. Take a moment to notice the grounding of your pelvis, the grounding of your legs, and the length of your spine. And we'll get it tuned to the pelvic floor a little bit more in a moment. But even right here, what are you noticing? How is the breath moving? Is it moving well? Is it a little choppy? Often I find that when I begin my practice, my breath is not nearly as clear and fluid as when I get moving and find myself. So maybe that's true for you. Maybe you jump right into the good waters of good breathing. Taking stock, noticing what's happening in your body. Where is your breath naturally going? See if you can sense all three of these bandhas and their opening and closing on the breath. I'll just, describe that a little bit more when we're lying down, which is, I find, a little easier. Bring your hands to your heart and let's offer an intention here. If we're working with trying to create the breath mobility in our body, to create space for the breath to move, that means we're creating space for energy to move. So what is it when you intend something? What is it that the invitation for prana to move through you? How can that prana support your intentions? Right, and then release the hands and let's find our way. Come down onto your back. So as you stretch out on your back on the floor, let's take a moment and we'll just do our usual warm-ups here. Stretch your arms overhead and feel some good length in your body. Stretching one side, stretching the other side. Just enjoy that nice opening through the rims of your body. Yeah, and then bring your knees into your chest and rock a little bit. Kind of scanning, checking with yourself. How are you today? Is there anything that you're working with in your body or your mind that your practice can be supportive for you? Okay, let's circle your knees and notice the sacrum. See if you can just kind of sense the weight bearing across your sacrum and how it transfers to different places across the sacrum as you circle. And let's go ahead and go the other direction now. And then open your knees and bring them back in toward each other and just allow that relationship of the hip joints, the pubic symphysis, the SI joints, all of this kind of works together. So let's just kind of know the full gamut of our pelvis. And then put your feet down onto the ground and let's windshield wiper your knees left and right. And turn your head in opposition of your knees. Breathing well. Notice if you kind of lost sight of your breath. Where did it go? What's been happening? And then bring your right knee into your chest, left leg long, and let's see what it feels like to move around in your ankles, wiggle through your toes. Find your breath here. A nice good squeeze of that knee. And we'll cross into a bigger twist now. Right knee coming over to the left. Stretch open through the chest. Feel free to have any movement within this posture that feels right for your body. And then come back to center, bring that knee in, and we'll switch sides. Left knee in, right leg long, and feel some movement. Wiggle your toes, roll around in your feet. How's the breath? And then we'll cross that left knee over to the right and stretch open across your chest. Maybe turn your head. See if movement is something that you want in your body right now. All right, and then come back to center. Put 2 feet onto the ground and then lift up your feet. Grab your feet. Happy baby pose. And let's rock a little bit, swaying from side to side, opening up through the sacrum. You can stretch your glutes a little bit in this pose. The pelvic floor broadens and widens. All right, and then release your foot, left foot down, right foot on left knee, come toward a reverse pigeon, and feel free, like always, to have some motion in this. I like circling my right hip. Maybe you like being still. Just kind of find what helps you warm up across the hip joint. Okay. All right, and then switch sides when you're ready. Left foot on right knee. And feel free to move that pose around or to be still. All right. Then let's put our feet onto the ground and grab your smushy ball and make it about half full, maybe even less, so that you have it's very smushy. Okay. And we're going to put the ball underneath our sacrum for a moment and just pause. Now we do this a lot with a block underneath us. And let's pay attention to notice what the difference is when we have something that's ever so slightly mobile underneath us. And feel free to let some movement happen. Maybe you want to drop one hip off the ledge or the other hip off the ledge, or kind of roll the top of your sacrum off the ledge or the tailbone off the ledge. Just kind of get to know your landscape here. Any kind of movement that feels really good. Okay. All right, then see if you can settle on center and drop some weight into your feet. And even though there'll be some just subtle engagement, trying to keep steady on the ball, see what you can do to just melt here for a moment. And notice your breathing. See if you can start to feel, in particular, Uddiyana Bandha and Mula Bandha, so the pelvic floor and the diaphragm. See if you can just release tension so that mobility can happen. And remember, a lot of tension that lives in our bandhas is unconscious. So bringing this part of our body into the light, into our awareness, is the first step to noticing what does happen in my pelvic floor. Am I hypertonic or hypotonic? Hypertonic meaning tense, hypo meaning more flaccid, like where the muscles just can't engage very well. Does it feel like a release to be able to be on the ball? Can you fully breathe in and fully breathe out? All right, and we'll come back to this ball in a little while. Let's go ahead and bring the ball out of there and rest your pelvis back down onto the ground. All right, let's roll to our side. Come up to your hands and your knees and find your way onto all fours. All right, so let's explore some cats and cows. Arching your spine, rounding your spine, taking your time to feel your way. What does it feel like to expand the breath into the movement? See what it might feel like to open the tailbone high as you inhale, and to exhale and tuck the tail as you exhale. This is the first step to understanding if you're a reverse breather. So if your tendency is to exhale when you lift the tail and then inhale when you pull the tail under, this is a sign of kind of reversing the diaphragmatic movement as you breathe. So first, just see if you can play with that, where we inhale to arch our back and lift our tail, and where we exhale to round our spine and tuck our tail. And if this pattern feels easy to you, familiar, comfortable, this is what you do, congratulations. That's a really great start to a healthy, good breathing. And if this isn't natural, this is a really good place for you to live for a while, to just practice this. All right, now to layer a little bit more onto it, widen the sit bones like you're fanning out the pelvis as you arch your back and tip your tail up. And then as you draw the tail under and round the spine, draw the sit bones toward each other. And just imagine that that's part of that opening and closing of the valve, where we broaden and widen our pelvic floor as we arch our back and lift our head and open the breath. And as we exhale, we close the doors. Tailbone tucks under, sit bones move toward each other. And see if that more exaggerated motion of the pelvic floor comes naturally to you. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, this is just the next layer of the work for you. All right, and then release that, and let's go ahead and wag our tail And just let your feet slide left and right. A nice, good, happy wag of your tail. And then put your paintbrush on your tailbone and point your paintbrush at the wall behind you, and we'll draw some big circles with the paintbrush. Okay, so a big circle on the wall behind you. This is different than painting a circle on the floor. Okay, so circle the wall behind you. And you might notice that this opens up your low back a lot, which is great. Notice the sit bones, notice the pelvic floor, notice the deep low core. Now turn and paint your paintbrush circles the other direction. Now I didn't say which way to go, so this is your less familiar pathway. Slow it down if you'd like, speed it up if you'd like. How are you breathing? Did you forget to breathe? It's so common when we try to do physical motions that we're concentrating on to just hold the breath. So let's see if we can invite our breathing into this range of motion. All right, and then stretch back toward a child's pose and relax. Stretch your arms overhead, maybe a little rocking to and fro. And now we'll do that same action of the pelvic tilts, but within the child's poses. So take a deep breath in, come up, and as you exhale, tuck the tail under and drop back. And notice the opening across the back of your body. All right, and then let's come back up. Take a breath in and come back on that in breath, widening the sit bones, lifting the tail high. All right, and then release that. Curl the toes under and lift to a dog pose. Take a little time to find this posture. Feel free to move around, pedaling your feet. And then just like what we were doing in the cats and cows, let's take some wider feet. So take your big toes to the edges of your mat. You can even turn your toes in a little bit. That inner thigh release sometimes can help us widen the pelvic floor more. So just notice as there's a little internal rotation of the femur bones, can you lift and widen the sit bones more? Now sense your breath and see if you can bring it to the pelvis. Grounding through your feet. And then bring your feet back together and walk your feet forward. Come to Uttanasana, forward fold, bending deeply. Inhale for a halfway lift, extending, opening up through the spine. Maybe pedaling your feet a little bit here. So you kind of open up those hips, one hip back and then the other hip back. Maybe your feet are moving, just kind of warming up the body. And then fold forward. Start to invite the breath. Push through your feet, rising up. Exhale, tracing down through the center of the body. Inhale, arms up, wide chest, elbows bent. Exhale, rounding, chin to chest. Inhale, arms up again, extend. Exhale, floating forward. A halfway lift, opening through the spine on the breath in. Exhale, release to come down. Step back to a dog. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, stay here. Find your diaphragm now, Uddiyana Bandha. All that work we did yesterday of discovering what's above and what's below. Find that again now. See if in this pose you open up the opportunity for the flow of movement through these bandhas. The next breath in, come forward into a plank. push the ground away. And now as we start to feel the invitation for strength, notice how wonderful it is to have these bandhas that bind. Okay, can you feel your pelvic floor engage? Can you feel all your core muscles? And even the, remember Uddiyana Bandha, the movement of it is with our muscles also, not just our diaphragm. So feel all this stability, this kind of harnessing to protect and stabilize the center body. And let's find our way to the ground. Take a deep breath in, cobra pose, open chest. Exhale, surrender back down. One more time on the breath. Rise on the inhale. Exhale and release to come down. Come up onto all fours. Move around in the spine. Wag your tail, spiral through your spine. Shoulder movements, anything that feels good. Curl the toes under and lift to another dog. As we extend up here, notice the body warming, the glutes, the hamstrings, the calves, the spinal muscles, everything's warming. And then let's walk our feet forward. Come to Uttanasana. Inhale for a halfway lift, opening the heart. Exhale, coming back down. Push through the feet, rise up, big breath in. Exhale, folding forward. Moving with the breath. Inhale, halfway. Exhale, step your left foot back, lunge. Invite the movement on the breath, straightening the front leg, bending the front leg. Where do you like to inhale? Where do you like to exhale? No rights or wrongs on this. Okay, so just find the breath. Move with the breath. Pay attention to your throat, your diaphragm, your pelvic floor. Are there openings? Are there closings? Stay with that nice big fluid motion of breath. All right, back foot comes forward. A halfway lift, open the heart again. Exhale, step your right foot back, come to a lunge this side. Invite the movement on the breath. Exaggerate your breathing. Let it kind of inform your movements. See what it feels like to just invite, inviting the breath. Where does it go? Where maybe not so much. And then walk your back foot forward. Take your feet hip width apart or wider, mat width apart. And we're going to come down to a malasana. You can sit on a block if you'd like. Stick a block underneath you, especially if your knees or hips. And of course, if this pose is not available to you because of your knees, your ankles, your feet, your hips, your back, something doesn't give you the option of doing this, you can sit in a chair to do this. Okay. Just go as low as your body allows. Elbows can, if you're in a deep squat, your elbows can come to the inside of your knees and just allow the pelvis to broaden. Full breaths here. Getting some very deep flexion in the hip joints. And then we'll come back onto all fours. Find our breath, move through a cat-cow again. Remember that pattern of breathing and moving the tail. And then flat back. Let's reach the left arm up in the air. Exhale and slide that arm under, twisting the spine. Remember, no matter what your focus is for your yoga practice, you want to just make sure you touch all your body places. You want to make sure in every practice that your spine has all of its movements, extension, flexion, lateral movement, and rotation. You want to make sure You touch every joint in your body, at least just for a moment, to have some range there, switching sides when you're ready. Feeling the shoulder blades, feeling the neck, feeling the ribs. And then lift that arm up, move around in your hand, and then we'll release back. All right, we're gonna come onto our back, grab a block. We need a block and we need a ball. Okay, so first, oh, and I'm sorry, you need a strap. I hope that you have one. And if not, no worries. Don't stress about it. Okay. So first, we're going to start just with some simple stabilization. So put the block between your thighs. Okay. Very simple. You can have the block closer to your pubic bone. You can have the block further up toward your knees. You can have the block at whatever width feels nice and comfy for you. So just kind of find your favorite place for stabilizing with the block. Ground through the four corners of your feet. I think all of you have done this with me before. It's a great way to turn on the pelvic floor and the transverse abdominis. Remember that our deep abdominal muscle has a lot to do with how our pelvic floor works. Okay? And also how our diaphragm works. Okay, so the transverse abdominis should expand and open and blossom and bloom when we inhale, and when we exhale, there should be a condensement. So if you think about a cylinder of support, that the top of the cylinder is our diaphragm, the bottom of the cylinder is your pelvic floor, and the walls, the sides of the cylinder are your transverse abdominis. So think about that engagement of, if we were to stabilize the spine with a lot of support, these are the muscles that do it. You know, the work of the above, below, and around. So as we inhale, relax. And as you exhale, use all those forces. So hug the block to help kind of invite the pelvic floor to turn on, engage your core. And then release all that when you breathe in. So we're just beginning to wake up the pelvic floor. We're going to do something very specific for it in just a moment. But just notice using your inner thighs, think of your inner thighs as kind of an extension of the pelvic floor muscles, so that we can kind of invite this awareness. Now, you might notice that as you inhale and release a little tension on the block, your pelvis may tilt and your back might arch a little teeny bit. And then as you exhale and engage your core and use your diaphragm and your pelvic floor and your inner thighs, you might notice that your pelvis moves slightly into a posterior tilt. And that's great. A little bit of movement, kind of that natural ebb and flow, really good. Notice your feet too. As you exhale, are you able to ground the outer feet? So stay connected with the outer feet on the exhales. You could spend a very long time just figuring this motion out. Okay, now we're going to take a strap and we're going to turn it into a hoop. Okay, so create a circle with your strap. And as you do this, you're going to take the strap around your legs, around your thighs, and we're going to stick a block between our thighs. So get your block in a comfortable place, wrap the strap and tighten it around your thighs so you're nice and snug. You have a nice, secure, stable place of your femur bones being hip width apart. Ground the feet. And now we're going to push into the strap, grounding the inner feet. We're going to push into the strap on the inhale, and then on the exhale, relax. Okay. So slightly different motion. And you might find that it's difficult to figure out all the pieces of this, and that's okay. Inner feet ground, push into the strap. Try to let the work of the outer hips do some work, so it's not just your, your core and glutes. All right, and then we're going to dance these two things together. So, we've been practicing the wide sit bones on the in-breath. Now we're widening the whole leg on the in-breath. So as we inhale, ground inner feet, push into the strap. And as you exhale, ground outer feet and hug the block. This is a lot to coordinate with the breath. So the most important thing is the breath. So if you can't figure anything else out, just breathe. Okay. The next layer is on that in breath. Maybe the legs push out. And maybe on the exhale, you can figure out the hugging in. Okay. And if that becomes a nice natural movement and you can layer another layer on, add the feet. Okay. So as we breathe in and push out to the strap, our inner feet ground. And as we exhale and we hug the block, the outer feet ground. And now maybe, just maybe, another fourth layer to add to this is just a slight pelvic tilt. Okay, we're on the inhale, we have a little gap under our back, we anterior tilt the pelvis, and as we exhale, we slightly posterior tilt the pelvis. This is a subtle movement. That's lots of layers. Start with the layer of the breath, just simply breathing in and out and letting the belly and diaphragm release on the in-breath, feeling movement. Okay. And then add the layers of pushing into the strap and block, grounding the feet, moving the pelvis. Okay, so do it in that order. So if you get confused, return back to the layer that you kind of had solid in you. First, the breath and diaphragm movements. Second, the movement of the thighs. Third, the grounding of the feet. Fourth, the anterior posterior tilt of the pelvis. So inhale, release the diaphragm, push into the strap, ground the inner feet, anterior tilt the pelvis. Exhale, relax the diaphragm back in and up, hug the block. Ground the outer feet, feel the tail lift slightly. It's a lot to think about. It's a lot to coordinate. And now we wonder why our breath gets a little disturbed when we don't have this natural movement. Many things disrupt this natural movement. Many, many things. Not the least of which is staring at a computer screen or being stressed or not moving our bodies very much. So many things can distress this. All right, and then we're going to release all the props. Get rid of the block, get rid of the strap. For a moment, just bring your knees in. And I know this is not, your most usual yoga class, and that's okay. When we, kind of focus in on things, and then we can add these things and layer all of what we're learning into our postures. Let's put our feet hip width apart on the ground. You can go a little wider. I like to go slightly wider. Your choice. Okay. And bring your hands, put them on your very low belly, maybe even some of your finger pads land on the top of your pubic bone. So maybe the heels of your hands can feel your hip bones, your finger pads can feel your pubic bone, maybe your thumbs are, on your belly somewhere. Just kind of find that touching of your low belly and pelvis so you can feel when it moves. All right, so let's try to let go of what we were doing with the block and the strap and just let the pelvis move now. So as you inhale, widen the sit bones. Breathe in, belly breathes in, nice billowing out of the belly and pelvis. And then as you exhale, releasing the belly, the sit bones move toward each other, kind of closing, opening and closing a fan. Might be a nice way of thinking of it, where we broaden the fan outwards on the in-breath, sit bones widen, belly rises, pelvic floor blooms, exhale, belly falls, sit bones move toward each other, the pelvic floor draws in and up. And again, if all these things moving together are difficult for you, try to just release the diaphragm and breathe and let your hands feel the breath moving. So even if you can't quite figure out the pelvis, when you put your hands here and you breathe in, do you feel your hands rise? When you breathe out, do you feel your hands fall? That's just the very first basic step. And then you can add the blooming of the pelvic floor and the closing of the pelvic floor. The anterior tilt of the pelvis, the widening of the sit bones as you inhale. And as you exhale, that closing back in, sit bones toward each other, Uddiyana, or sorry, Mula Bandha, where we draw the pelvic floor in and up. All right. And relax this for a moment. Straighten your legs. And just bring your arms down at your sides like a little mini Shavasana. And let's see if in this position you can feel, I know we haven't talked about Jalandhara Bandha, but let's try to tie together the movement of the diaphragm and the movement of the pelvic floor. Okay. So as you inhale, let your belly rise, the broadening of the ribs, the diaphragm moves down and wide, the pelvic floor moves down and wide. And as you exhale, both of those bandhas draw in and up. The diaphragm draws in and up toward your lungs. The pelvic floor draws in, sit bones close in, and the pelvic floor lifts. See if you can just simply allow these. It's not so simple. For many people, this feels very backwards and it's very difficult to access. So again, hands on belly can be a nice way of having a feedback of, is my breath moving the right, is my diaphragm moving the right way? So as you inhale, your belly should expand. You should feel your pelvic floor expand. And as you exhale, you should coil back. All right, and then relax that. Bring your knees into your chest and rock a little bit. Sometimes focusing a lot on these parts of our bodies can, just make us feel a little tense. So just release any tension. And then come on up to sit. And we're going to, now you can sit in a chair to do this. You can sit on a block to do this. I'll show you with both. If you have a chair, this is a nice, comfortable way of doing this movement. And it requires that the ball is pretty deflated. Okay, you don't want to sit on a big lump. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a lot of air in your ball. If you're sitting on the chair, you can sit right on the ball, okay, right on your pelvic floor, so that you can sense the rising tide and the recoil. So you can do that on a chair, where you kind of flatten out the ball underneath your pelvis. And then if you're sitting, you can do this a couple different ways. If you're sitting on a block, you can put the ball on the block and sit in Virasana and sit right on the ball. It's very different than sitting on the block directly. And you can, I like to do it in Virasana. I feel stable in this way. But you can also sit on a block or like a bolster and put the ball underneath you like this. This is my least favorite out of these three choices. I tend to kind of, my pelvis wants to rock a lot when I'm sitting cross-legged on a ball. I mean, on a box. So make sure you figure out which of those three you want to do, and then make sure that your ball is deflated, not very inflated. So I don't know, like a third of its ability to inflate, so that you don't have something pushing up really hard against your pelvic floor. All right, so whatever position you have found that's useful to you. This is a great way to sense if your pelvic floor is moving. All right, so get comfortable. Couch, chair, ground, whatever it is. Be upright in your posture. And just take a moment to notice when you inhale, does your chest rise up? See if you can prevent this pulling up on the in-breath. Okay, so first we'll start with the actual diaphragm. You can put your hands there if you want. Sometimes I like to put my hands on my, like right at the bottom ribs. So you just kind of, or in your belly, just find where you want that feedback. Wherever your hands are, breathe into them. Notice the diaphragm moving down and wide, and then drawing in and up on the exhale. The hands can provide a lot of feedback. So, play around with where you want your hands to be. You can put them on your kidneys, you can put them on your belly, you can put them on your low ribs, wherever works for you. Maybe even just on your belly. And now that we're sure that we've got our diaphragm where it needs to be, and if not, just keep working with it. Now see if you can sense the pelvic floor. And if the ball's too inflated, you will just get uncomfortable. So make sure that this is not too much inflation of the ball. Can you feel your pelvic floor broaden and widen and press into that ball as you inhale? And then a recoil back on the exhale. This is subtle. And you might notice, like I'm noticing that my pelvis is tilting a little bit, that when I inhale, I slightly move to an anterior tilt. And when I exhale, I slightly move to a posterior tilt. And this is why I like to be on a chair or in Virasana, because there's too much motion in my pelvis. It's too much of a tilt that I go into when I'm sitting cross-legged, but maybe not for you. And then see what it feels like to use both Uddiyana Bandha, Mula Bandha. Can you broaden and open the valves on the in-breath? And can you draw and recoil those top and bottom of your cylinder in and up? You might be exaggerating the action of your pelvic floor. And that's okay while you're learning. Well, this is what it feels like to push my pelvic floor out. This is what it feels like to pull my pelvic floor in. So the exaggeration of the movement can be helpful to just learn. This is what this direction feels like. This is what this direction feels like. The motion is really important because if you're always stuck in one position, our muscles get weak. Okay, that it's the fluidity with the breath that keeps these muscles very strong. All right, and then I don't recommend sitting for too long on a ball when you first kind of learn to do that because you don't want to stress the nerves in your pelvis. So if you start to feel numb or weird, you want to not do that for very long, okay? And like I said, I can't impress upon you enough to have the ball kind of squishy. All right, let's come back into a dog pose. Extend through your spine here. Take your feet wide again like we did earlier. Turn your toes in and take a deep breath. Feel the pelvis move, feel the diaphragm move. And then walk your feet forward. Come to Uttanasana. Inhale to a halfway lift. And relax. Push through your feet, rising up. Bring the arms to the sky. And relax. And so breathing deeply. Let's notice here, what does it feel like to just open up your throat, your diaphragm, your pelvic floor. As you exhale, can you feel all three of them kind of coil in a little bit? These are subtle movements. This isn't big bicep curls, okay? Try to notice that even when you're standing perfectly still, there is so much motion going on in your body. All right. Let's come down onto our back. Bring your knees into your chest and rock a little bit, swaying from side to side, nice and gentle. We'll take our 2 blocks. Okay. Put them underneath your outer knees. I think we did a Supta Baddha Konasana yesterday as well. And let's just invite opening in our body. So arms out, so your chest is open. Your diaphragm is nice and free. Your throat is free, so try not to tuck your chin, but keep your throat open and keep your pelvic floor open. Breathe your way here. How is your breath doing? Now, if we had a whole nother hour, I would just do a regular yoga practice. So if you have a little time to move through some vinyasas or do some of your favorite poses and kind of sense how this work is translating, or maybe go for a walk or anything that you're about to go do in your body in the coming hours. See if you can notice if your breath is involved in that action in a new way. Okay, so as we enter Shavasana, feel free to rock a little bit, to take any last stretch or movement that you want. Maybe stretching your hips, a reverse pigeon might feel good. Maybe a twist might feel good. Just anything at all that your body needs to kind of normalize, neutralize. Maybe when you lie down, you can rock your legs. Maybe open, close your fists, kind of get an awareness of your extremities so that you're not solely focused on the pelvis. Maybe a big stretch with your arms overhead and move your shoulders and hips, maybe wiggling your fingers and your toes. And then decide when you're ready how you want to be for Shavasana. I'm going to put my legs up today on the couch. Maybe you want some support underneath your knees. Maybe you don't. Just kind of find what's best for you. Sometimes I like getting my legs up, my calves up on something after doing pelvic floor work so that I can just really relax and kind of feel that inversion type energy. But maybe that's not what you're in the mood for. Okay, so always follow your intuitions. Take a moment to relax your body. Maybe you still want your hands on your low belly so that you just know the invitation for the breath to move here is available. There's so much of the time that we don't, we close our pelvis down a lot of the time. So what would it feel like to just have your pelvis a little more free through your day? Slowly begin to deepen our breath. Take your time. Eventually finding your way to your side. Using your arms to come up slowly, finding a comfortable seat. And take a moment to just notice your breath again. Can you really allow the in-breath to come into all the places? Let prana flow into your body, into the pelvic floor, into the diaphragm, into the lungs. Let yourself fill. Let yourself empty. Let's bring our hands together at our heart and offer the gifts of your practice. Share your energy with another. Share your breath. And then release your hands. Namaste, everyone. I would love to know before, okay, let me just say this. So if you've done the last three practices, to kind of figure out which of the tools, because there's so many different tools, which of the tools really has helped you have access to your breath, and which of the tools maybe have been harder for you. So hold on, let me stop the recording and then you can come on and tell me.